Welcome to Crushgasm, the podcast dedicated to the highs and lows of crushes from their first to their worst. We're going to cover them all with a cascade of characters, including our guest today, an award-winning burlesque clown, KiKi Maroon, a producer, stand-up comic, showgirl, and streamer who is here to talk not only about what's keeping her busy online until live events come back into our life, but also a couple of crushes that were all about faking it. We'll get to them in a second, but first, KiKi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. A little chilly, but I'll manage. Got the heater running. So we're going to get right to these crushes. And your number one crush that we're going to talk about is a 90s powerhouse. And It's JTT, aka Jonathan Taylor Thomas. He's like an icon. When it comes to 90s crushes, teeny bopper crushes, first crushes, he like runs the gamut of the crush realm. But for you, JTT was more about just like going with the flow, because at the time, little KiKi was having feelings more towards girls, and you were like, JTT, I'm kind of just gonna like him to like fit into the crowd, not raise any red flags. Is that correct?
Yeah, mostly. It wasn't even that I had feeling towards girls. I just didn't understand feelings at all. Now, as an adult, I can look back and say like, oh, okay, this is what, I am queer. This is what this means. But at the time, I think that it was also confusing that I just kind of shut everything down and just did not have crushes. It was very interesting to me. I love the concept of this podcast, but it really got me thinking, because it took me so long to think of a crush, and I just was like, sure, I liked people. Surely I liked people. And so, yeah, I really think that's what happened, is I just kind of shut it all down to not have to process it, but then felt not like the other girls.
So did you pick JTT because that's who all the other girls were liking at the time? And you were like, well, JTT's not gonna make me seem different because he's kind of who everybody likes right now.
Yeah, I really think that's what it was, because this is, like you said, he was 90s, one of like the 90s crushes. Around that time, I want to say it was him. I think this was around Hanson time as well. There was another guy named Devin Sawa or something like that.
Yes.
And it's so weird thinking back on it, because it wasn't even the teenage boy thing. They were all preteen boys. And they would have all those magazines, Teen Beat magazines, with all the little squiggle hearts all over the place. And they really, like, culturally, society pushed this. Like, this is who girls your age like.
Very much so. It was like, you had a few years of JTT being on the cover, and then soon enough it was Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and today even they're still with Shawn Mendes and BTS, so it's still going of like, this is who you will like to be a normal prepubescent or pubescent teenage girl.
Yeah, but and I'm not really up on like BTS, but how old are they? Because I want to say like JTT, I think he was like 12 or 13, which just sounds bananas to me to think back at like the idea of being a heartthrob pre-puberty.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he doesn't do a lot of press today. He's not out and about. I think when people spot him out, it's like seeing Bigfoot, because it was like he was so big in the 90s and then he kind of disappeared. So I don't know how he felt about being pushed like that. Like you said, being a heartthrob before he probably even hit puberty.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But yeah, it definitely was that of just, this is what culturally you're supposed to like. I remember seeing other girls had those Teen Beat magazines. And so, yeah, I was just like, I wanted to fit in. I wanted to have that same thing. And I still remember the first time I asked my mom at the grocery store, because, they just had them all lined up there by the checkout. And I asked her for one of those magazines, and she just looked at me and said, why? Because I'd never talked about him. I didn't watch the show, was it Home Improvement, any more than any other show, really. There was nothing that indicated that I liked this guy. And I think I should have asked her. I think even she knew it was bullshit.
She's like, I'm not spending that $3.99.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. But I know that I got one eventually. I don't think I got it that first time, but I think I kept asking and eventually got one of those magazines and just wanted to play the role.
Were there, like you mentioned Devon Sawa, were there any other contenders in your mind swirling, like maybe I can crush on this one instead of JTT?
So the other one, which, oh my God, I feel like such a psycho saying this, was Patrick Swayze, which is like very inappropriate, but that's who my mom. I remember her watching Ghost and Roadhouse, and my mom had a crush on him. And so she would bring him up and be like, oh, he's so handsome. Oh, look at him. And she just would always kind of gush all over him. And so that was my other fake crush that I pretended to like. And I think, yeah, it's just the idea of like the other girls like this. My mom, who is kind, the matriarch, the thing that you try to model yourself after, she likes this. This is what I'm supposed to do. And so I pretended to have crushes and be attracted to this boy and this man.
Very like day and night of the crushes as well. A 12-year-old and probably someone, maybe he was like 35, 40 at the time. Who knows?
Yeah, at least.
Was like liking Patrick Swayze like a way of like not just being like your mom, but maybe connecting with her in any way?
Yeah, I think so. I remember her just always, like I said, she would bring him up, she would watch the movies. And yeah, I think I just wanted to have something like her, I mean, I don't think it was much different than kind of like putting on your mom's shoes when you're little, or trying on her dresses, or trying on her makeup. I was trying on her crush. I wanted to see what being an adult felt like.
Were you scared of what your relationship with her would be like if you told her, Mom, Patrick Swayze, not really my thing?
I don't think I was scared of it. I think that, I feel like it's pretty common at when you're younger, or let me speak for myself. When I was younger, I did not know who I was. And when you don't know who you are, you just want to be liked. You just want to fit in. You just want to be like everybody else because you are not confident yet and you don't know your own brain. I'm still learning my own brain. And so I think it is just easier to just model everybody, just fit in and just be the copycat. But I don't know that that's necessarily bad, because that's also how you figure out what you actually like and don't like. Is it's like trying food. Maybe you like spicy food, maybe you like sweet food. You don't really know until you try it. And so you're just kind of trying all the hats on and seeing what sticks.
I just interviewed a Black gay minister by the name of Benjamin Carlton. We're talking about his 90s crush, kind of coincides. And he was saying like he didn't come out till he was 30. And so like he did mention humans naturally just want to fit in. They want to find their tribe. So were you doing that as well?
Yes.
But trying to just like, I'm just going to go with the flow here. Maybe Patrick Swayze fans are my tribe. I don't know.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. You're just trying to find your tribe. And yeah, I didn't fit in a lot in school. And so I think that was just a very clear, easy one to look at and say, look at how I'm like you. Versus if you're talking about full on personality traits, that's so much harder, or changing the way that you speak, or changing your, like an accent, or just completely acting differently. You try it, but it's so much harder than just saying, oh, I like the same thing as you. I definitely like the same thing as you. Let's be friends now.
For sure. Like my best friend and me, we connected over Backstreet Boys because both of we had different best friends at first, but her best friend became this like really popular girl who the boys started to be interested in. She went towards sports, and I was a fat kid. So I was like, probably not gonna hang anymore. So like we bonded more over, what we liked. And that's how we continued to make friends. Even after high school, all my college friends are people I met at concerts because we like the same music. Full-on connection.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I think I want to say that's probably what happened is, being an observer, I could see those connections being made with between other people in school, and I wanted that same thing, for sure. I wanted to have friends. I wanted to be liked. And I told you, I've just been thinking about this so much since you asked me about it. And so I have a tendency to overthink. And I really like the idea of questioning the things that are automatic in my brain. why did that thing become automatic, and kind of figuring it out, because everything comes from somewhere. And so later on in life, I'm much healthier now. But for a while, I definitely had the where I was into the bad boys, right?
Oh, that comes up a lot here.
I believe it. I was into the bad boys. And it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, because I never got anything positive out of those situations. It doesn't seem logical to be interested in that. And so part of me is now wondering, because even though part of the JTT thing was like, oh, he's so wholesome, the movie that I actually did watch repeatedly was the what was it, the Tom Sawyer?
Tom and Huck.
Yes, Tom and Huck, where he was the bratty kind of Dennis the Menace, mischievous kind of guy, or little boy, And so part of me wonders if very early KiKi's brain was solidified of like, this is what a straight a straight girl likes, this kind of boy, so this is what I am going to like. And if it just stayed in the subconscious for years.
I mean, totally possible. Who knows? You're working out some things here with this JTT.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I do want to go back to Patrick Swayze, though. You did mention he was a lot older. So, was your mom ever like, this, isn't an appropriate thing for you to be liking?
Well, no. I remember her. I remember, like I said, she was watching Roadhouse, where he is also a bad boy. Just saying.
There it is again.
He is also a bad boy with a heart of gold. It's the whole, I can change him. But I remember her watching that, and I wasn't really watching it. I was probably playing with some toy or reading a book, but I was in the room with her. And I remember her asking me at some point, maybe his shirt came off or whatever, and she was like, ooh, ooh, because she's just silly. And her asking me, do you like him? Don't you think he's cute? And kind of pushed him on me. And I remember feeling uncomfortable. And from then on, yes, I like him. Because I was told I should like him in this situation, I now like him.
So the pressure of it, you're like, oh, I guess, you're liking it. I don't know.
Yeah,
okay. Take the shirt off, Mom. Calm down.
Yeah.
Calm it down, woman. Calm it down. My mom's guy was Rod Stewart, so thankfully I just didn't. I was just like, ew, he is old and gross. Yeah, my mom was the worst taste in celebrity crushes.
Oh my God, Rod Stewart, that's so good. But I think, I thought most, if not all, dudes were old and gross. So that's why I didn't know the difference between a 12-year-old boy and a 45-year-old man. They all seemed kind of icky to me. So I was like, well, I guess this is what the opposite sex feels like.
Well, I actually did like Patrick Swayze. I've written a lot about, with each interview I do, I will write some blog posts. I'll talk about my crush from that kind of theme of the week, and I'll do a top 10. So I have written about JTT as my first crush, and Patrick Swayze actually wrote about him being one of my sexually awakening crushes. Around here, that's a crush that no matter what age, it made you feel some things. And I was actually 5 when I felt those things. I was watching Dirty Dancing, and his character in that is just it was phenomenal. It was life-changing for me. It's 30 years later, and I'm still I just watched the Time of Your Life, whatever video, the last scene last night, and I was like, I can do the moves. I love it. Well, I wanted to know, did you have any crushes, maybe at that age or later, that maybe it was your sexual awakening crush that made you realize who you were?
I don't have a specific memory of a sexual awakening. I can say that for a long time, it was women. But again, I did not understand that. But yeah, I know that it was, as far as the actual oh, this feels tingly, that whole thing of not understanding that was always women. And it was usually just random in regular movies if there was just, a quick topless scene. and I would just have the, oh, that kind of thing. And that was so regular that I don't even remember a specific one. That was just my state. I was kind of like a horny teenage boy. Yes, all of it. I thought it was all wonderful. But that was so regular that I do remember one of the only times I felt that for a guy, because it was so strange. I had never felt that same thing. And like off of a television, I'd had experiences with, guys in school or whatever, but I'd never looked at a picture or a movie and thought, oh yeah, about a guy, ever, until there was this clip of Gavin Rossdale, the singer of Bush, from some concert. Maybe it was one of the Lollapaloozas. I don't know. I just remember it was always shown on like MTV or VH1 or whatever I was watching at the time as one of those iconic moments that everybody remembers.
Rain?
Yes. You know it. In the rain, singing Glycerin. He's soaking wet with his guitar, being all sexy. That was the first time that I felt something for a guy, like on TV.
Well, Gavin Rossdale, kudos to you.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony. That was one of my best friends, my Backstreet boyfriend. That's one of her like ultimate crushes growing up, actually.
Really?
So I know the clip very well because of her.
I mean, it's very, very hot. And that's something, now as an adult, I understand, I don't really have a type. I've learned that about myself. I kind of joke about different types, but I don't actually have a type. I just am like, what I find this sexy. What is sexy to me across anything, across genders, across ages, across whatever. Sexy is sexy. And I think that wide spectrum was just so confusing growing up that, like I said, I just kind of shut it all down and was like, I'm just going to play pretend, but really just not care about anything because it's too hard to decipher.
When you sort of figured it out, is that when you were like, well, I'm queer? That's kind of what encompasses who I am. Because queer is not a term we actually like used a lot in the 90s, I would say.
No, we definitely didn't. I currently identify as queer. Mm-hmm. That to me makes the most sense. But even then, like I said, we're always figuring this out. I always am. I feel that my entire life is a project of trying to figure this brain out. I only realized I was queer like a couple of years ago. It's pretty sad. I was already in my 30s and it happened very strangely. I got an email during the start of like lockdown stuff. So now what is it? So not even 2 years ago. At the start of lockdown, I was getting a bunch of emails about different grants that were available for artists because I am a working artist and, everything went away. So there was lots of grants to help people out at the beginning. And one of the emails I got was for queer artists and it was asking me to apply. And I called my best friend. We're talking about the day, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, it's so funny. Guess what? I got this email that asked me to apply for this queer artist grant. And she said, oh, are you going to apply? And I was like, no, I'm not queer. I was telling you like, oh my God, it's so funny. Isn't that funny? And she just got quiet for a second and she said, KiKi, how many pussies have you tasted? And I was like, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but that wasn't like regular sex. That was like party sex. That wasn't, no, I'm not. I always identified as straight. It never occurred to me like how many interactions I'd had with women, because in my head those didn't count.
Because it was party pussy.
I just had a good time. It was because I never had a relationship. That's how I compartmentalized it in my brain. Is I have not had a relationship with a woman, so I am straight. And she had to actually walk me through it. She's like, no, that's not a thing. That's sex. You still had sex. You're not straight. And it was mind-blowing. Like the start of the pandemic, lockdown was already such a mind fuck to suddenly realize that kind of everybody knew this about me, because I talk about sex on stage a lot in my comedy. I'm very open about these experiences and I'm like, wait, y'all knew? Everybody knew but me? Nobody told me I was queer.
But like this only happened in March 2020. This email came and was that was your sexual awakening. It was an email.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, life suddenly makes sense.
Were you like, was it a relief of any sorts? So you said you're still trying to figure this brain out, your life out. So is this a little bit of a...
I don't know that I would use the word relief because I didn't ever feel confined. Like I said, I still did all the things. I think it felt, there was a freedom in it because, like I said, I never identified as that. I never pursued those interactions. You know, it's kind of a thing of if they happened, they happened. And after that, I felt comfortable saying like, oh no, this is what I like. Yeah, I think men can be beautiful. I think women can be beautiful. And I'm now either open to all experiences or occasionally actively seeking out experiences instead of just waiting for them to randomly happen. So there's definitely a freedom in that and just being like, no, I do enjoy this and I would like for this to happen again, please.
All right. And then going back to when you were younger, you said JTT, Patrick Swayze, crushes lasted, well, these counterfeit crushes lasted about a year. Was that because you were just fed up with faking liking Patrick Swayze and JTT, or did you like move on to someone new, like, oh, maybe like I'm gonna fake a Backstreet Boy now because that's cool? Or
yes, I think, and I have a not the best memory in the world, but yeah, I think it just ended up bouncing around to whoever was popular at the moment. I know that that they were the first of this pattern that began, but yeah, because it was just about, you know, wanting to fit in and just, you know, trying to find a way, like peer pressure wasn't enough. Being concerned about my clothes wasn't enough. Being concerned about my grades wasn't enough. Let me throw in just also crushes, relationships, love. So yeah, I think it just bounced around to whatever was most popular until I want to say sophomore year in high school, because that's when I entered my gothy, depressed, contrarian phase where anything that was actually popular was so not cool to me. Oh my God, I can't believe people like that stuff. And anything that was cool had to be terrible. And so then I went the way opposite way.
Is that when you started to openly say who you actually like then, because you just wanted to be opposite?
No, I just didn't talk to a lot of people because that was my depressed, like very emo phase. I did have a boyfriend by that time that became a long-term boyfriend, which again, processing all these things, looking back at, he was definitely, I think you would categorize as more like effeminate. He had longer hair. We were the same size. So we shared clothes, we shared shoes. And I'm like, oh wait, this is all kind of coming together. Like he felt safe because he kind of fit into both categories, I think, in my preteen brain.
Okay, so maybe you were something for him, he was something for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know where he is today?
I do not know.
Oh, it's like, I always like to catch up with, I always do a little Facebook stalking every once in a while.
Oh God, yeah, I used to do that, and then I realized like this is not healthy for me. Just because if it was like not a great ending, I'm like, I don't need to see what's going on. I don't need to, I feel like I'm just kicking myself in the head when I do this.
Well, I did a interview with two hosts of a podcast, the Homance Chronicles. They actually they went to the same high school, but weren't really friends. They didn't vibe then, became friends after because they met at a job. So they have this podcast now, and they didn't know they actually shared the same high school crush until I approached them. And, you know, we go through the whole thing, find out their crush, he was like Mr. Cool, you know, that guy everyone likes. I was like, well, do you know where he ended up? They're like, we'll tell you something. I'm like waiting, anticipating, like, where could this guy end? They saw him on a Hair Club for Men commercial years later. I was like, oh no.
Oh my God. That's so funny.
Like,
that's so funny you said that. Just a couple of weeks ago, I randomly ran into an ex, and I was very professional. It did not end great, but I was very professional. I was very proud of myself. I was very polite. But afterwards, I called my best friend and I was like, oh my God, guess who I saw? And he must have cheated on his hair too, because it left him too.
Oh.
And it felt so good. I hate that it felt good. I in my head, like, I want to be like a very evolved, compassionate, like, just, I just don't want to like the petty, but it felt good.
That always feels great, especially when you look back, and I also had my emo phase and everything, and you're just like, look at me now, like, sort of thing. I know it feels it's petty, but at the same time, let us have it as former sad emo kids.
Oh my God, yeah. I think it's human nature. I think you see so many of those things in movies and shows, and it's very much this. It's almost like a hero's journey. There's like the story arc of, unpopular or uncool or sad, and they come back and they show everybody. And so it's so drilled into our heads, at least in my head, even when I was like going through it, even when I was sad, I was like, just wait, one day they're gonna see. So yeah. It does feel good.
I just wrote about that as like we're doing the 90s crush thing about Roger from Sister Sister. Did you watch that show?
I did watch it because I was on TGIF as well. Yeah, but I don't remember Roger.
He was the dork, and then season 4, they came back from break. He was hot, so I wrote about like that being a crush, but not so much on him, but on the idea of like having that moment where you can just be that like person that everyone's looking at.
Yup. Oh, I know. Yes, I'm very familiar with that. I know when I switched from middle school to high school, that felt like the most important summer in the world, because the idea of going from 8th grade to 9th, and I knew, I want to say it was like maybe 3 middle schools all went to the same high school. And so, we knew, like, I knew there was going to be new people who didn't know all these things about me. And it was like, just seemed so important that first day of school. I could wear something totally different. I could be a different person from that day on. And I wanted to make sure it was who I wanted to be. And it
did pan out.
No, not even a little bit.
I know. We are the same way. We have 4 elementary schools that go separate to 2 middle schools, and then we come back together as 1 high school. So I definitely felt that it was like a lot of pressure. I was with the same kids. I don't know how your school worked. We kind of, if you were in the same we were the advanced class, so we spent 3 years together, the same kids. Now we're meeting the other advanced kids and it broke me in many ways because I don't like new people. So I was like, my friends were like making friends with these new people, and I was like, they're not part of our tribe. What are you doing?
It's scary. It's very scary. It's a lot. And yeah, I think, since high school, I've actually, moved to different cities several times, and it wasn't like as intentional as the like 8th grade to 9th grade idea of like, I'm changing who I am, but it does happen. It happens. And so I think that there's just something so appealing about a clean slate, the fresh start of like, who am I? I get to decide right now who I am. But that's also so scary, which I think is why some people fight it, because that freedom it's scary. It feels like too big of a responsibility, because if it goes wrong, it's all on you. You can't blame anybody.
And then you just have to move again and start all over. And moving is expensive.
Yes, it is.
So it is. We usually cap the crush portion with me asking what you think your life would be like if your crush and you had gotten together, but yours were counterfeit, so you didn't want to actually be with them. So I do want to ask if you could go back to 3rd grade and hang up pictures of like maybe some actual crushes you had back then. Who from those Tiger Beat teen bot magazines would you have put up?
If I was being true to my heart then, as well as just for honestly the remainder of my life, it would have been like Kermit the Frog.
Aww.
Like that. I know we're not visual right now, so you can't see, but even in my house right now, I'm like surrounded by puppets and clowns and stuff like that. Maybe that's part of it. I didn't ever want a human. I wanted to have puppet and clown friends, and Lovers.
Well, Kermit is a wonderful crush. He is such a gentleman. He's a singer. He's an artist like
Yep.
yourself. So
Absolutely. And I mean, his love is Miss Piggy, who I kind of accidentally became. I mean, she's just like the epitome of glamour. She's, she is burlesque. She's got the feather boas and the glitter and the heels, and that's kind of my life. So I think we would have made a great couple.
Well, Kermie, if you're out there.
Call me Kermie.
I mean, my first crush was Robin Hood from Disney, the fox.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he was a hot fox, too. I can definitely see that. See, that's what I'm saying. I think I'm into cartoons.
Well, yeah, on the last season 13 of RuPaul's Drag Race, I remember, I think it was season 13, they were like, oh, who is your like first crush? And they kind of got on Denali for saying Aladdin and Hercules. They were like, that's weird. And I'm like, no, it's not. Because the first things we see are cartoons.
You know what? As you say that, both Aladdin I thought was cute. And then Jasmine, when she was in the red... when Jafar put her like in the sexy red version of her outfit.
Jasmine in the red on so many people's list is a sexual awakening.
She had that chain around her neck.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that one gets on. I think every time BuzzFeed does a list on that, Jasmine in red, Jafar, and Aladdin are top a lot of people's lists.
Yep. Oh, you know who else? Sorry, now I'm just going through. Once you say cartoon, my brain's like, oh, I got answers for those. Spike from Cowboy Bebop, another bit of a bad boy, but with a heart of gold.
I don't know Cowboy Bebop. So.
Yeah, it was an anime. It was I was very much into him as well.
Well, I'll have to look.
Yeah, I love fantasy. That's what it is. I love fantasy.
Well, now it's time to talk more about the fantasies you have to come to life. You're performing. You said you kind of were like this kid that didn't fit in. You had your emo face. So when did this like love of the spotlight come about?
Oh, a long time after that. I was incredibly shy. I was shy. I never made eye contact with people. I think, I was teased a lot in middle school and high school. Just did not have a great experience. Just like full transparency, I attempted suicide twice in high school. Like it was a real bad time. And so that just kind of depression lasted until my early 20s. And I often say like something in my brain just broke. It reached max capacity of sadness. And I physically could not be sad anymore. And just kind of overcorrected, I guess is the best way to put it, where I just wanted my entire life to be like magical and big and sparkly. And that's how, my love of the circus. And so I'd been working as a costume designer. And so I wanted to work with circuses and be around all the sparkly, glittery people. And so then that changed to making my own line of costumes, which then included some burlesque performers making their costumes. And so I put together a show. I didn't really know it was a show. I was thinking about it as an evolved fashion show, where rather than walking down a runway, the burlesque performers would perform in my clothing that I made or in the costumes I made. And for the first one I produced, I didn't even know I was producing. I just thought I was throwing a big fun costume party. I just was running around backstage and they were wearing my clothes. And then the second one I did, the host that I had got, which was just a friend of mine, bailed on me the day of the show. And so I had to host the show. I didn't know how to do my makeup. I didn't know how to do my hair. I had put on one of the costumes, so that was fine, but I didn't know how to hold a microphone. And I still remember the whole first show, people kept yelling, "We can't hear you," because I held it so far away from my face. I didn't know how to even use it, but it was the most fun I had ever had. It was absolutely amazing. And it changed my life.
Thank God that person bailed.
Oh, absolutely. I know some people roll their eyes, but I'm one of those people that thinks everything does happen for a reason. And, the whole like butterfly effect idea, that person bailing changed the course of my life. And it's kind of like the fake it till you make it. For the first couple of years, I was still, shy, quiet me off stage. And on stage is, where I was playing a part. I always said, that's a character. that I'm playing. And I didn't understand for a long time that that was who I wanted to be. That was on stage was the only time that I felt completely free to be who I really was. I thought it was a character, but it wasn't. It was my true form. Finally being allowed, being given permission to exist. And, the more I did that on stage, the more it just kind of seeped into my daily life until I just kind of realized I am me. This is me. And now there's no difference. Who I am on stage is who I am by myself, and during lockdown dancing, with my frying pan while I'm cooking eggs. It's the same person.
Well, what a beautiful story and journey, and thank you so much for being so open and honest. So burlesque sort of like was the jumping point, and then you got into stand-up. How do you think the two kind of play off each other and help?
Oh my God, they're the same thing. I think it is so funny to me how different they're seen, because they are the exact same thing. It's one is getting naked on stage, one is like exposing your innermost thoughts, but it's the same. It requires the same amount of vulnerability to be successful in either, to be entertaining in either, to get a response from the audience. It's all an energy exchange. I'm going to do this thing because I want to invoke a particular response from the audience. I think that's magic, to be able to say, this is a feeling I want this whole group to have, and I'm going to do these things or say these things or move myself this way to conjure up a feeling inside of a mass group of people. I think that is amazing. And so they're exactly the same. You need the same skills. It's the same set of tools. And if you can do one, I think you can do the other.
You mentioned being vulnerable in a different way with stand-up, and we always hear like stand-up comedians in the long run, a lot of them do have this like tortured soul past that kind of helps them on stage and be funny. They kind of pull from that. Do you feel like that is your kind of story too?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I think it is my story. I guess I could. I choose to not hide from my story. And I talk about it as open and honestly as I am capable of, because I think people connect, I don't think anybody's ever had a perfect life. I don't think that exists. And I think that when you say like, this is the thing that happened, or this is the thing that I went through, that people then feel comfortable sharing back, or even if they don't share back, if it's on stage, for example, I think that even if it's just in the back of somebody's head, they can be like, okay, it's not just me. I'm not alone. That's so important, because that's the human existence, right? Is trying to fight the feeling of being alone. Like you said, finding your tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's why I've loved the connection that I get from being vulnerable. And even though it has the ability to cause pain, and has definitely caused me pain in the past, I also know that it has given me connections that would have never happened if I didn't open up. And so I make an active choice every day to be vulnerable, because it makes my life better.
Well, speaking of, it made your life better, but we have to, address the elephant in the room, that is COVID. And it hit everybody in its own way. It hit huge, but especially for entertainers. How have you been kind of dealing with everything in the past couple of years?
Oh, geez. It has been an interesting time. Feeling like the only things that you have to offer. Sorry, I keep saying you. I should speak for myself. Feeling like the things that I have to offer to the world became irrelevant. It's pretty painful. And so it's definitely been a huge adjustment for me. I stay positive and focused on the future. I do not believe this is forever. I can't, when shows come back, they're going to be bigger than ever. They're going to be better than ever. People, I feel, have a greater appreciation for the arts and for entertainment and for connection than they did beforehand, because it had never been taken away before. And so I think there's so much potential in the future that it's just going to make things amazing.
I totally agree with that, because I didn't realize that after the Black Plague came the Renaissance. And then after the 1918 flu, we got the Harlem Renaissance. We got the Great Gatsby era of that, the Roaring 20s. So I was like, I wonder what we will get after finally this is all over when it comes to art. And like you said, we never had it taken away. I was someone who went to concerts constantly when I lived in LA, and to have that stripped away, I was like, excuse me? What? Like, I waited 2 years to see Alanis Morissette finally. Like,
oh yeah. And it feels different. It feels so different to be able to do it again. And I'd like to think that that's going to stick around for a while, that feeling of appreciation and gratitude, because it's, it's an experience we just all had together. And so it's going to be talked about for a long time. And that's, what keeps it in the forefront, which is what keeps the gratitude in the forefront.
But for now, we do have to kind of keep online, keep safe. Do you have any like streaming performances, anything we can look out online?
So yeah, that's the positive that's come from all this, is I started doing a lot online because I really didn't have anything else I could do. And I started streaming on Twitch, which, oh my God, talk about the whole butterfly effect thing. That's another thing that has just changed my world. I love it so much. It's not performances, I'm not doing the burlesque show. I did a couple when things first started of the online burlesque shows, the online comedy shows. And I just did not enjoy it, honestly. It wasn't that same energy exchange we were talking about earlier. But Twitch, it's just live streaming. Sometimes I do it for 2 hours. I've done it for up to 13 hours straight.
Oh, wow. What'd you do?
Some of it's just chatting with people. We'll have just people come to the room. We're talking about different stuff. We're watching YouTube videos. We'll do different debates based on either what's going on in the news or just really ridiculous stuff going on. I do cooking on my live streams, and I'm still me. I have all my puppets around. Like, it gets very ridiculous. I think just like 2 or 3 days ago, I had somebody in college came in to my chat and asked me a question that was on his business ethics homework. And I was like, motherfucker, I'm a stripping clown. I don't know college things. And so as a joke, I looked it up, like live on stream, like Wikipedia, these things that he was talking about. And I was like, oh, this makes sense. And so then I got 2 of my puppets and had my puppets debate the business ethics, like principles that he was asking about. Wow. And that's why I enjoy Twitch. It's ridiculous. And it's just kind of going with the flow with just whoever's coming in and whatever weird thing you want to talk about, and then we play video games, and so it's nice.
It sounds like Twitch was a really good alternative, especially when people were feeling alone a lot these past couple of years. So you gave them a beautiful connection and puppet shows.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've curated a community now of people that all regularly watch my streams. They all know each other. They become friends. They're all chatting with each other outside of that. And it just starts to snowball and grow. And then separately, I, watch a lot of other streamers as well. So I'm on the other side as a viewer who is in the chat, making friends with people. And yeah, it gave me a new definition of what community can be once, you couldn't see people. And it's not going to stop, once everything is 100% completely safe in person. I don't believe people are suddenly going to stop watching Twitch and not care about online communities. I think it showed a lot of people that this thing existed, and it's just going to continue to grow and be better, because then they'll be able to meet in person.
I was going to say, you guys can plan like get-togethers, and I think that happened in the 90s with kind of like chat rooms, and then we went to Twitter. A lot of people have met friends on Twitter, Tumblr, everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just redefining what community and friendship means as the technology grows, and it's amazing. I love it.
Well, can you tell people where they can find you online and be a part of your community?
Yeah, absolutely. All of my social media, all of my stuff is at KiKi Maroon, and so if you just go to kikimaroon.com/links, I have the listings to all of them because it's just too many to list. But I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and then I'm on Twitch as well.
Right. Well, I will list them below since there's so many. We'll make you like spell them all out again and again. So, KiKi, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about your counterfeit crushes and so much more. And everyone, you can find all of KiKi's information, like I said, below. And until next time, keep crushing it.